In the previous video, we created the basic kiwi shape, hairs, and stem. Now we're going to finish up by creating the bottom nub and creating a sliced kiwi. The bottom of a kiwi has some hairs, called stigmas. They protrude out of this nub, so let's start with that. First, create a cylinder. It's pretty small. Here are the dimensions I used. Create a loop cut and extrude downwards to create a bowl. Now in the middle of the bowl, we want to raise the middle slightly by creating another loop cut and raising it a bit. If you look closely, there are a lot of crunchy folds, so we can create them by simply creating a lip on our bowl by adding a new loop cut and then start to extrude out some mesh. Go around the lip and extrude out blocks of 3 to 4 to create these crunchy folds. Once the basic shape is done, apply smooth shading and a subdivision modifier with 2 divisions. Create a loop cut to form the bottom edge. Now add a displace modifier. We can use the same texture as the one we used with the stem, and with a strength of 0.001. Like we've been doing with the stem components, create a geometry node modifier to add our hairs. Let's turn off the modifiers for a second. We need to UV unwrap and add the seams, but we don't have to be exact. The nub is so small and covered with hairs, you won't notice any small distortions around the seams. So in this case, I just marked every edge as a seam and unwrapped. Scale until you get a nice pattern size and turn on the modifiers. Add any loop cuts to fix any warping you see. You should see something like this. The process to create the longer stigmas that we find on the bottom is basically the same process for the other hairs, only that the stigmas are larger and different color. I've already showed how to make these kind of hairs in the first video, so I've used that method to create a few more, but they're larger and the material assigned to them is a darker color. We need a base mesh to instance the hairs. For convenience, we're going to reuse the base nub we just created. It doesn't matter what we use, since this mesh is not going to be part of the node output, but the nub is already about the right size. So let's go ahead and duplicate it, and use the same geometry node tree we used to create the additional hairs to instance these hairs. We don't want this cylinder to be part of the final mesh either. Afterwards, we need to adjust the density and rotation random of the stigmas. Now combine the two objects and place them on the body. I've also created another mesh to add additional hairs like I did for the stem. Once they're on the body, you may need to resize the objects and adjust the hair lengths and quantity. That's it, our kiwi's done. I think it looks pretty good. Now, something a bit more interesting is to create a sliced kiwi. Most of the work goes into finding the face image. If you have one, that's great. If not, I'll show you how to create one using Substance Designer, using no external images, in the next video. So starting from a kiwi body, we wanted to cut it in half to expose the face. Create a loop cut in the middle and then select all the vertices on one side of the loop cut and delete them. Now create a new face to close the shape. We'll need to mark new seams around this face, UV unwrap, and rescale the UV so the texture looks right. One thing to note is we added a displacement modifier to create some organic bumps on the kiwi surface. Just to illustrate this clearer, I'm going to bump up the displacement strength so we can see it better. When I increase the strength, we can clearly see the texture-based displacement at work. We don't want these bumps to appear on the face, so first, we'll limit our displace modifier to only affect the vertices in the kiwi hair group. We created this group to limit where the hairs should appear, and we can reuse it to restrict the displacement. Now we need to remove this new face we created from this group. Once we do this, we can clearly see that the face no longer has bumps created by the displace modifier. Don't forget to set the strength back down to 0.001. We're ready to assign the kiwi face. Select the face and assign it to the kiwi face material. With the face still selected, create an inset by pressing I, and scale it outwards until it almost reaches the outer edge of the face. We see there's some green that has bled over the edge of the face. This is caused by the subdivision modifier. We can clean this up by adding a loop cut and sliding it towards the edge. You may see some distortions near the seams, but they won't be so noticeable once the kiwi is covered with hairs. Now regarding the kiwi face material, we want to add some subsurface scattering, but only a little bit. We have our standard color, normal, roughness, and metallic maps, but we don't want to use the existing UV map that was used to texture the kiwi body. This is because the scale and positions are different. We need to move the mappings for the face independently from the kiwi body. So we can see that instead of using the default UV map, we're specifying a UV map called UV face. In Object Data Properties, we'll need to create a new UV map called UV face. Once you do this, you'll see the kiwi pattern show up. Now in the UV tab, with the inset and original face selected, move and scale the UV mapping until you get the kiwi face nicely sitting in the middle. Recall that we just restricted the kiwi body displacement from affecting the face. The face is now too flat. It does have a normal map applied, which gives the small bumps, but the face will look better if we add some larger distortions. In the object data properties, select the face and assign it a new vertex group called kiwi face. Now create a displace modifier using the cloud's texture at 0.01 and a strength of 0.02. Make sure to restrict it just to the kiwi face vertex group. This creates some larger but stronger bumps on the face compared to the body. Now you can stop here. This looks pretty good, but real kiwi skins are not infinitely small. The skin has a thickness, so we can do more to create this effect. First, we want to select all the faces associated with the kiwi face. This is the inset and the original face we created when we sliced the kiwi. Move it inwards towards the kiwi body. Now, with the faces still selected, scale inwards ever so slightly. Remember, we're not moving outwards, but only scaling inwards. You'll see that we're creating a loop that's sloped towards the face. This is our skin's thickness. Select this loop and assign the stem color. You can actually assign any brown color to it. I just chose the stem material because we already have it on hand. Now slide this loop cut over to the face. We see the beginnings of the edge forming. Now, this loop of faces is sloped inwards too much, so create a loop cut and slide it towards the face. Scale this loop cut so it no longer slopes inwards. Take a look at the face. If the edge is too thick, we can scale the face outward slightly and select these loop cuts that we created and move them even closer to the face until you get the thickness that looks good when it's rendered. This is barely noticeable, but to me, it looks much better when you add some thickness to the skin. But it's your kiwi and your choice whether it's worth the extra work. And there we have it, a kiwi. It looks pretty good, nice and fuzzy. I use this method a lot because I can swap the tops and bottoms to create different variations. For the face, you can really use any kiwi face image you find online. But for fun, I decided to try and create it using Substance Designer, and I learned a lot from the process. So in the next video, I'll show you how I use Substance Designer to create the kiwi face. Thanks for watching.